Good evening and welcome to the Manitoba Arts Council's Arts Leaders Speaker Series. I'm Tracy Longbottom, Program Consultant at the Manitoba Arts Council, and I will be your host for tonight. We would like to start by acknowledging that we're on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Inuit, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We recognize privilege disparities. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Here at the Manitoba Arts Council, we are committed to an approach that respects and recognizes the distinct worldview and creative culture of Indigenous communities while aiming to make Indigenous artistic expression a source of pride for all Manitobans. Welcome, everyone. This is the first of our series, which will feature 3 arts leaders from the IPOC community sharing their personal stories and journeys, including our esteemed guest speaker tonight, Alan Greyeyes. The second half of our session will feature Kathleen Enns of the Manitoba Arts Council, who will present on the Supports Arts Leaders Program, which is a brand new spanking granting program that we have available now at the Manitoba Arts Council. Afterwards, we'll have a Q&A period. So any questions that you may have for our speaker, Alan, or questions regarding the Supports Arts Leaders Program, please use the Zoom chat option to do so. As I mentioned, we ask that our audience members please mute your mics throughout the entire session, including the Q&A period, and we'll relay your questions from the Zoom chat to our speakers. So we have a lot to cover in the 1 hour that we have available. So let's get started. I'm very delighted to introduce our first guest speaker of the series, Alan Greyeyes. Let me start by saying we are privileged to have somebody of his caliber make Manitoba his home. He's done so much to put Indigenous music on the map and has made a significant impact on our artists, organization, and the artistic activities within our province and beyond. With his many accomplishments, Alan established the sākihiwē Festival with the goal of making the arts more accessible to Indigenous families within Winnipeg. It's a fantastic event which brings emerging and established artists from all over Turtle Island, and I'm quite certain it's an incubator for a whole new generation of talent who aspire to be future performing artists and arts leaders. Throughout his career, Alan has also played an integral role in launching the Manitoba Festival, the Indigenous Music Awards, the Manitoba Music's Indigenous Music and Market Builder Residency. Alan also dedicates a huge amount of his own personal time to nurture a resilient and robust arts ecosystem. He has contributed a wealth of expertise on numerous boards and advisory committees, including the Juno Awards, the Polaris Music Prize, the National Music Center, the Winnipeg Folk Festival, and the City of Winnipeg. In addition to all the well-deserved honors that Alan has received over the years, he is also a recent recipient of the awarded distinction from the Manitoba Arts Council. So please, let's extend a warm welcome to our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Alan Greyeyes.
Thanks, Tracy. So my name's Alan Greyeyes. Thanks again, Tracy, for the introduction. I'm going to start off by just acknowledging my mom, because she really protects me from the family obligations that a lot of Indigenous people are dealing with. Like I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks, actually the last month, since the Michelle Latimer Indigenous identity controversy popped up in the media. And it became really clear that, the things that protect us or the things that support us as Indigenous people are definitely our families. And in a lot of cases, in my family is no different. Our families are struggling with the intergenerational effects of residential schools. And that means that, some of them are incarcerated, some of them are struggling to get through the school system, some of them are struggling with addictions. And I'm very fortunate. My family, my immediate family, is very fortunate, and then my mom really takes up a lot of the ownership of dealing with those late night calls. And so I really couldn't do everything that I do in the arts community or in the music community without that kind of support or barrier. And so I just want to acknowledge my mom before I get started. I also want to acknowledge the program officers at the Arts Councils, Canada Council, Manitoba Arts Council, Winnipeg Arts Council. During the COVID-19 pandemic, since it started, they've all been really supportive and willing to walk with us as organizations and as arts professionals to get through this. And I think I'm really proud of the fact that our organization over, I guess, since March, since lockdown started and the pandemic kind of took over the world, our organization has been able to give to pay out close to $100,000 in fees to artists across Canada, Indigenous artists. And that's a lot more than we've ever given out or been able to pay since we launched the festival in 2009. So, and again, that's a credit to the program officers across the country who have been really understanding and helping us navigate the program or the project updates and the bureaucracy to get the money first to our organization and then out to the artist. And so again, I want to acknowledge program officers because I think they're an untapped, a really untapped resource for our arts community. I believe that through the jury process, which is really important, these program officers actually have a broader view of what's happening across the country. And it's one thing that I brought up at some consultations at the federal level or the national level is that it would be great if we freed our program officers from some of the bureaucracy to help them connectors, to help them be the I guess the connectors is the right word, to help them bring organizations like ours with other Indigenous organizations or Black organizations or emerging organizations where we can share resources, we can share ideas and policies even. And so our policy guides, I think, again, I think our program officers are an untapped resource. So today we're going to talk about the Arts Leadership Program, and I'm going to rely on Tracy and Kathleen to get into more of the details. But I think for a long time, I've been really seeing a need for admin talent. And one of the greatest examples of an admin talent development program that I've seen so far is is in Toronto. They have this great program called the Remix Project, and it gives it's actually supported by Drake's label OVO. I think that's where the foundation is, and there's a lot of the OVO leaders, business leaders that are part of that. And so what they do, they have a charitable organization. They run annual programs for young people from, I guess, diverse communities and give them a chance to not only learn. So there's a couple of different streams. There's a music stream, there's a music business stream, there's a fashion stream, and there's a photography stream. And in the music business stream is really how they've been able to develop a lot of great admin talent. And what I've seen or what I've asked them when I've been able to meet with some of the founders is, how do you do this? How do you make sure that these people have the skills and then also have the opportunities? And one of their models is that they'll work with like a large corporation like Live Nation or Universal, and that's kind of the benefit of being in Toronto is having access to these large corporations, and they'll have these corporations make contributions or donations to the charity, and they'll use some of that donation to pay for an annual salary for some of their graduates to go through, and through that experience of learning, being employed for a year, they develop a lot more skills and a lot more a better network. A stronger network, a professional network, and an artistic network as well that they can draw upon and rely on as they build their careers. And so again, I think this arts leadership program that Manitoba Arts Council is a great step in that direction in giving us as a community or giving our different communities the opportunity to, pick what we're going to do and pick who we want to work with. And I think that's really important. And I also see, and maybe Kathleen and Tracy will correct me later, but it seems like you can also put in a subsistence fee for yourself so you can focus on the work as well as pay your mentors to devote some of their time to what you're doing. And like I said, so I'm going to backtrack to what I was talking about earlier, which is the need to develop admin talent within the Indigenous arts community specifically. I'm lucky enough to have got my start at Manitoba Music. And I also consider myself a second or maybe even a third generation Indigenous arts administrator. And so I've had the benefit of, through Manitoba Music, to learn from some great arts administrators. I always think fondly on my time working with Sam Bardman, and I think he's retired now. I know he's had some health issues, but I learned a lot from him. And it was such a great opportunity. What I'll also say is that it didn't pay very well. And so I think that's the kind of the reality for a lot of nonprofit organizations. When you're just starting out, the fees aren't going to, or the salary, the wages, they're not going to be that great. And I think there is also, I guess, a sidebar. There is a movement within the arts community that I've seen through some of the juries I've been on, a movement for arts administrators to recognize their work, to recognize the work of the people following in their footsteps, and to pay them better, to pay them living wages, so that young parents, single parents, or parents from like Indigenous communities or communities that have intergenerational trauma or generational debt can actually live and afford daycare and afford to invest in arts lessons or music lessons or sports for their children. And so I think there is a movement, and the more that we talk about it as a community, I think the stronger that movement becomes. And so, as to conclude my sidebar here, I'd just like to encourage you all to, place a value on your work, place a value on the work and the time that the people following your footsteps are putting in. And that really means paying people living wages when you can, and building organizations that can actually do that. And also not accepting the status quo, not accepting what organizations or executive directors have done in the past as the be all and end all. Knowing that us as a new generation, or the generations that follow in our footsteps, can do more, and they definitely deserve more and the ability to focus. I kind of lost my train of thought there. So yeah, there is a definite need for admin talent, the development of admin talent in the Indigenous arts community, and that's really the first step towards building stronger organizations. I think we all know right now that there's also a great movement to have more Indigenous, Black, and people of color represented in different organizations across the country. And that sometimes manifests itself in a diversity committee or an equity committee, or just seats for Indigenous, Black, or people of color on different boards of directors or in staff complements. And that's really nice. I think that's important. I think we'll have people learn through participation. People from our communities learn through participating with different organizations. And that seat at the table is very important. But I think what's more important is the ability for us to build our own tables. Like I said earlier, during the pandemic, our organization actually was able to pay a lot more money out to Indigenous artists specifically, because that's our community. And so the more arts administrators we have in the Indigenous community, the more chances there are that, when bad things like this pandemic happen, our artists are going to be supported. And the biggest role, the most important role that I think that the organization that I work in, the sākihiwē Festival, the most important role we play, I think, is the development of new talent. And so just to backtrack, like, we exist because Indigenous artists need help. We exist because Indigenous families are often priced out of the arts experience through ticket prices, or family responsibilities, or through cultural isolation as well. Sorry for a second. So I think, yeah, we need more arts administrators. We need more people who are going to dream and develop new organizations and new events specific to Indigenous, Black, or other diverse communities, newcomer communities, so that they can take care of the artists, they can take care of the families, and grow the audiences. A big challenge that I encountered in when I was starting out was the argument by presenters across the country that there wasn't an Indigenous audience, that there wasn't a need to include Indigenous artists in their programs because the audience wasn't there. And so that's another big reason why we launched the festival back in 2009, is to show presenters from across the country that there is demand for Indigenous artists, and that there are incredible artists that they can include in their programs. And I guess one of the biggest examples, success stories, I guess we've had through our festival was the rise of A Tribe Called Red. And it wasn't like we're not solely responsible for it, because I believe that good music matters the most. But we were there at the same time that they were starting out, and helped them really get a strong foothold here in Winnipeg. And at the time, I guess it was the early 2009, 2010, 2011. The Indigenous audience here was still like, it was when I was still going out and to clubs and stuff, and going out late at night, and I wanted to have a space where, you know, we could see other Indigenous people and share ideas. And I saw Leonard Sumner just pop into the call a little earlier, and he was definitely a part of that too. Like, he'd come out and he'd see shows, and he'd perform as well. But I think things have definitely changed. But again, like, that's the important role that we played. I don't know that some of these artists might not have that same opportunity if we weren't there. We played a strong role in like convincing other presenters that A Tribe Called Red would be a draw for their audience. I know that a lot of folk festivals, a lot of jazz festivals across the country weren't too sure. They didn't think that DJs would be engaging enough. And so again, even though it was about 10 years ago, it's still like, it seems odd that we had to fight so hard just to get these artists on other stages. So again, that's another important role that me as an arts administrator that I played was being able to lend my talents and my time to helping this organization build capacity, and through that capacity, we were able to help our Tribe Called Red and a number of other artists really get a foothold and to expand their horizons. So yeah, we talked about equity, I guess diversity and having a seat at the table is definitely a big part of the equity movement in the arts. And I first learned about that, I guess it was through a meme, probably about 4 years ago. And it was a meme where they were like looking over a fence. There was 3 people looking over a fence, and one was short, and so they couldn't reach. And one was like medium height and could see a little bit over the fence, and one was tall. And then the tall one also had a bunch of boxes. I think that's how the meme looked. And it just said, you know, this is equality, them not having the same, the tall person just has whatever they have, and they can see over the fence, they can see the whole baseball game. And then equity was when, you know, when the short person had more things to stand on, and so they could all see over the fence, and the medium person could see over the fence higher. And so that was my first introduction to the idea of equity. It was a meme, and I still think that memes are important in our communication strategies and helping get messages across and helping people learn things quickly. But yeah, equity is very important. But I also was involved in a conversation last week where we started to talk as an Indigenous community about sovereignty, and sovereignty being more important than equity. And I haven't fully wrapped my head around that yet, but it is a feeling like Section 35 of our Constitution really lays it out pretty clearly that Indigenous people are unique and have a unique and special place within Canada. And I'm a firm believer that every national stage in music needs to have more than one Indigenous voice. I'm a firm believer that we can use those stages to also challenge stereotypes. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around a meme that'll work for that sovereignty argument. And I'm not saying that we need to leave our Black and other diverse people of color in the background. But I do feel like Indigenous people have a special place, and that we, these things, there are historic injustices within Canada, the residential school system specifically, that make it really important to provide Indigenous people with more resources and opportunities to correct those injustices. When I was acknowledging my mom, again, it's really, it is hard as an Indigenous people to fight, to have the same level of excellence as our Canadian counterparts, or the same level of customer service. And I believe like this program is a great first step, because it's really important for us to get involved, for us to build capacity. And our little organization, it's really just me and the volunteer board of directors. We have contract people like Cora Lambert, I saw pop into the room earlier, who definitely help out, but we can't hire them on a salary basis yet. We don't have that capacity. But I believe like if we had more admin help, admin support, admin talent within our community, we could definitely build stronger organizations. As an Indigenous organization and as an Indigenous arts administrator, I did not, oh yeah, is that the meme that just popped up? That's great. We didn't inherit audiences. We didn't inherit policies. Our policy guides. We didn't inherit corporations. We didn't inherit lines of credit or relationships with corporate sponsors. We also didn't have the same relationships with private sponsors, corporate sponsors. And so it's all about, like, we're definitely starting from at a disadvantage as an organization and as a community too. And a lot of the Canadian counterparts that we're competing for corporate sponsorship with, they started when there was still residential schools running in Canada in the 1990s. Some of them even started before, like in the traditional Indigenous ceremonies were outlawed in Canada. And so they have multiple generations head start on us. And that's another reason why I believe that in like programs like this Arts Leaders Program project are very important to help us level the playing field, so that we can be the little people like looking over the fence in that meme. And it's not that we're shorter. Again, it's just that we gotta, our start was a lot later. Our parents didn't have the opportunities to dream. Our grandparents didn't have these same opportunities to dream, to think of having careers in the arts, careers in music, careers as administrators. And so my big goal, and I'll applaud the Manitoba Arts Council and taking action on this, but my goal is to make things easier for the people that follow in my footsteps. And this is a big part of it. But I think it's probably good to move on to the next segment. And I'm going to stick around and answer some questions. And I'm looking forward to learning even more about the Arts Leaders Program, because it's I look at the guidelines and everything, but what I've also learned in, I guess, how long? I think I've been working in the arts full time for almost 15 years now. And what I've learned, and I don't always do this, but when you talk to the program officers, you can come up with a stronger application. So I think Tracy and Kathleen will give us an opportunity to, figure out how to write a stronger application for this project or this program.
Oh, gee, McWitch, Alan, that was so insightful and inspiring. We're so honored that you were able to be with us here tonight. Thank you very much. So I'm now going to direct your attention to Kathleen Enns, who is another program consultant at the Manitoba Arts Council, and she's going to be presenting on the program Supports Arts Leaders. So take it away, Kathleen. You're mute.
I'm famous for doing that, walking away without unmuting my mic. So thank you, Tracy, and thank you all for being here. I understand there's quite a good number of us here together. I expect that this presentation will be of interest to both those of you that are thinking of applying to this program, as well as possibly there might be some organizational people out there just trying to learn about what it's about. So we're going to go into what's a PowerPoint presentation. And in my presentation, I'm going to just get this set up here. I'm going to start by giving you a brief overview of this new funding program, and then I'll talk about how applicants can develop leadership opportunities, and I'll provide some basics as to how to apply to this program and how these applications are going to be assessed. The Manitoba Arts Council, just to begin with, is an arm's length agency of the government of Manitoba. And we fund the creation and sharing of arts and culture for the benefit of all Manitobans through a variety of our grants. This grant in particular is a LEARN grant. It's about your learning development, career development. So this grant, the Arts Leaders Grant, I'll begin to talk about in terms of just the basics of the who, what, where, when, and why of the program. So who can apply? For those of you that are organizations, not you. This grant is for individuals. You can be in our system, our online granting system, as a arts cultural professional or an Indigenous knowledge keeper or an emerging or established professional artist. The grant is available to folks that are one of these categories, but who are also Indigenous, Black, and people of color. And if you're not sure about what these different names of applicant types are, in our website under grants, in our resources section, there's a general guidelines document. And in the general guidelines, we have the definitions and the criteria for all of these applicant types. So if you're unclear, you can go there for the full descriptions. One thing to note about who can apply is, of course, you must be residents of Manitoba. So on to what is offered in the Arts Leader program. So through this partnership with the Winnipeg Foundation, MAC is able to provide grants of up to, can be below, but can be all the way up to $35,000 per applicant for projects that develop an individual's leadership skills and develop opportunities for leadership within the arts sector. Where is, as I mentioned before, applicants must be a resident of Manitoba, but the projects and that you might propose can take place anywhere. They can be here in the province, certainly, but they can also take place anywhere across the country or internationally even. When? Well, the program is currently now up on our online granting system, and you have until February 15th to put in an application. We will be letting folks know if their applications are approved or not by March 31st. And we should just let you know that, of course, as with all of our arts grants programs, this is a competitive process, and some will be funded and some will not be. But approved or not, you'll get notification by email by March 31st. Your projects can be of a variety of lengths, short, long. It can be fairly long, even up to as long as 18 months. Why we are offering this grant? Well, at MAC, our core values are equity, diversity, creativity, collaboration, and accountability. And like most arts organizations, we're looking at how we can act these values in our work and in our funding programs. There is, we understand, currently a lack of diversity in senior leadership positions in Manitoba's arts sector, and we want to help change that. Our broad goal in the Arts Leaders Program is to see more IBPOC arts practitioners in senior leadership positions in the arts sector. So what kind of leadership opportunities are we talking about? Well, that's where you come in. What is your vision of leadership? What would you need to become a senior leader in the arts? Do you need a mentor? Do you need training with an arts organization? Do you need education or classes of some sort? Or do you just need time on your own to do a self-determined course of study? The Arts Leaders Grant can be used for any combination of leadership development opportunities. So people might ask, how do you develop this idea, this opportunity? So if you're somebody who's interested in applying and you're an individual, you may want to start by trying to talk with some of the leaders in our community that you know and respect, and find out from them how they got to where they are today and who helped them along the way, and what they wish they knew earlier in their careers. And if you're here as a representative of an arts organization, you will want to talk to your community, talk to the membership of your community, and let folks know that you're interested in assisting in this program. But be sure to let individuals, as they come to you, define their leadership goals and work together with them to help them meet those goals. One thing to note is that the funding here doesn't go to an organization, it will go to the individual applicant. So while there will be benefits for the organization that might participate, the Arts Leaders Program is really about supporting the needs of the individual. So to help you start thinking about what potential projects you could possibly apply for, here are some examples. One-on-one with an elder or a leader that you respect, a series of short mentorships with folks like artistic directors or festival directors, executive directors, facility managers. You could do training opportunities with arts organizations. You could do internships or job shadowing, co-management roles or program leads. You might want to do courses, and you could do courses in a variety of things. Maybe it's management, finance, human resources, courses in a variety of things. That it really depends on what your interests are and what leadership areas you develop. A series of activities you put together to help you achieve your leadership goals could be just something that you come to yourself, a self-directed skill development series of activities involving research or networking, interviews with national leaders, attending conferences, or any of the above. The Arts Leaders Grant can help cover a variety of costs, including living wages. And that can be different for different people, depending on your family makeup and where you're at and what you're doing. You might be working part-time, you might be taking a year off to do this kind of a program or this kind of an event or opportunity. So your requirements and needs will all be different, I'm sure. Childcare expenses, mentorship fees, registration fees, course expenses, technological expenses, computers, that sort of thing, travel and accommodation if need be. All of that is all eligible expenses. If I haven't mentioned one of the costs that you're thinking about right now, talk to one of us and we can tell you about its eligibility. That's the program in a nutshell. Because some of you are probably known to us and we know you, the next part might be a little bit redundant, but I'm going to go over for those people who are new to MAC and new to our system of applying for grants, a little bit about how to go about applying. So step one, the first thing you have to do is create a profile in our online application system. And you simply have to go to our website, and on the top of the homepage, there's a sign in. Sign in, it asks you to either log in and register, but if you're just coming there for the first time, you're going to register. And as said, you're going to register as one of these applicant types: arts cultural professional, Indigenous knowledge keeper, or professional artist. You're going to also need to have your CV ready to upload, and you'll be putting that in, and that'll be just talking about your work and your thus far study in the arts. You'll want to create this profile. If you're planning on applying for this February 15th deadline, you're going to want to apply as soon as possible, because it can take up to 2 weeks for the profiles to be vetted and approved in our system. Sometimes a little bit less than that. So I would recommend you get to it. Step 2 would be to talk to the program consultant. So there are 4 consultants here at Manitoba Arts Council, and we're able to support you through your application process. Tracy Longbottom is the lead on this particular program right now, but any can also help you sort of determine whether this is a good fit for you. And that's the first thing. What is your project, and is this a fit for it? We can also talk to you and review some of your ideas about your budget, and of course answer any questions. Also, besides the consultants, we have a wonderful team of folk at Manitoba Arts Council that are the help desk people, and they are also terrific at answering lots of questions. So never not ask a question. There's no stupid questions. They're all, keep them coming. The lead consultant for arts leaders, as I said, is Tracy Longbottom. So she's our host, who you've met already. So feel free to reach out to her. The next step, step 3, is to draft your application. You're going to want to, of course, read through the application guidelines as well as the general guidelines, which, as I said, are on our website. And if you have questions, again, ask. And some of the information that you're going to need for the application, I can just tell you right now, will just simply be a description of your vision of leadership, a little bit about your background, your influences, and previous activities that relate to this project, and then a description of your project with, again, some of the brass tacks, the who, what, where, when, and how, and any letters of participation. So if you're going to be doing something with an organization, you'll want a letter that, that mentions that you'll be working with them, an invitation, registration, acceptance from mentors, what have you. And then a budget will be requested as well. So step 4, and step 4, the first thing it says is submit your application. But before you do that, again, feel free to contact the consultants to have them review your application prior to your submission. And it's often helpful to just get a little bit of feedback in advance so that if there's anything that we note is missing or could be bolstered up a little bit, we're happy to give you a bit of advice on that end. So before you submit your application, we recommend that you talk to a consultant. And once you are ready, you can submit. So, you know, when you do an online application at MAC, we are able to see it in the draft form. So this is all done online. Applications are needing to be submitted online prior to 11:59 on February 15th. And I would caution, though, that you not wait until the last minute. Please do try to get your application submitted prior to the end of our day. Our hours end at 4:30. And if you get into any kind of technical difficulties at all doing that, then we would not be able to help you after 4:30. So please get those in as soon as you're able. And then it becomes an assessment situation. So the step 5 is now on us. You've done what you can do, and we will be putting together a jury, and all the applications that are coming into this program are going to be reviewed by a committee composed of artists and arts professionals from across Canada. They will assess your proposal based on its impact and feasibility as per the questions listed in the program guidelines. And once the assessment is complete, you'll have your notification one way or another on March 31st. I don't want to take too much time with this, but I think it's important, and this information will be available, as will all the information from today's presentation, to you later. But I did want to kind of go over a little bit with you what the assessors have to do. The assessors are asked to give a 1 to 5 score on some of the following ideas. So this is going to give you a sense as to what you're going to want to make sure is in your application. The proposed project develops meaningful connections with the potential to generate future leadership opportunities. The proposed project will contribute to the applicant's development as a leader. The proposed project will benefit the artistic community in Manitoba. The applicant's previous experiences demonstrate a commitment to the arts and cultural section. The applicant clearly expresses what leadership means to them. The project identifies clear goals. The participating mentor or organization or institution is a good match for the applicant. Mentors and instructors or partnering organizations have the capacity to provide the applicant with a meaningful learning experience. The proposal reflects thorough research and planning. The budget accurately acknowledges the likely costs and revenues of the project. And the applicant will complete the proposed project. You will be asked to complete a funding agreement if you are awarded. And if you are awarded, we also ask that you acknowledge the support of MAC and the Winnipeg Foundation on any promo materials that you might be producing in your project. And at the end of the project, you're going to need to submit a final report within an 18-month period. If you do not receive a grant, we suggest that you just go back and reread your application and then give a call to the program consultant to get feedback from the assessors. The process is competitive, as I've said, and unfortunately not everybody who applies will be funded. But often, you know, I think the value too of doing any kind of grant application is every application is a learning experience. And as I said, also, we're very happy to help you through those processes. It may be at the end of the day that you want to consider applying to other MAC programs. And you can see MAC has quite a few funding streams. A number of programs that those of you who are professional artists might be interested in will be things like our residencies program, our CREATE program. Some of you will be our PRESENT program. We have a travel PD program, which is a smaller grant, which at this time doesn't actually require people to do travel. You can actually just do a small professional development program if you choose to go that route. And for those of you who are arts cultural professionals, also the travel PD program and the artists and community program are ones that you might want to look at. The Arts Leaders Program, as you'll see, is a part of the support stream here. If you have any questions, we're all the way to the end of my PowerPoint. As I said, the help desk folks are great to talk to, and they can certainly direct your questions to consultants as need be. So that's all that I have. If you have questions, I know that they're going to be collecting those in the comments section. So please feel free to do that, and I'll pass it back to Tracy to carry on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, so far we have received one question from our audience. However, we do have some other questions that were asked prior to our session. So I think I'm going to move to those. And if there's any other questions that you may have as the audience, please put these in the chat and we'll get to those. But I'm going to, first of all, ask Alan a couple of questions that I mentioned we received prior. So Alan, okay, the first question is, are there national and/or international opportunities that can be taken advantage of while working at a distance right now, if I want to learn how to be a leader in an arts organization?
Yeah, I think the Banff Center has probably the most comprehensive programs available for arts management and just leadership in general. And so I definitely look over there. The Indigenous program is run by Renalta, and she's really nice. So I think the Banff Center is probably the best bet. I've been meaning to purchase a subscription to the Indiepreneur website, which is more for artist management and social media marketing. And so like there's a lot of opportunities to learn right now. And I really feel like since the pandemic started and everyone's staying home, there's less commuting. So work has actually increased. And so, yeah, there's more opportunities online now.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. How about another question?
Yeah.
Okay. MAC has had questions from individuals wanting to get their BIPOC organizations off the ground to support and promote the work of BIPOC artists in different disciplines. With all the work you had starting new organizations and bringing life to ideas, are there any recommendations you have about what would be key to making the vision become a reality? Does this take special training, or are there other ways to learn?
I don't know if it takes special training, but it takes like individuals with multiple talents. And so I think our parents' generation was really compartmentalized. And so somebody could specialize in like admin work, somebody could specialize in marketing, somebody could specialize in fundraising. And I think to get nonprofit arts organizations off the ground, you need a number of people who have multiple skills and can do multiple things and have a lot of different experiences and a lot of different ties to the community. Especially as an Indigenous organization, we also need the traditional aspect. And so having people on our board who are tied to ceremonial leaders is really important for us as well. And so I think it's just, for me at least, it was about not letting people crush my dreams, because there's a lot of that. People just saying, you know what, there's not a market for that. You know, there's no need for these things. You know, Indigenous people have enough opportunities as it is. You don't need to have anything special for them. And so it's about believing in your dreams and also putting in the work to be able to articulate that. Like I said earlier, I'm still trying to find a meme that, and maybe it's something that I need to develop on my own, a meme to explain the sovereignty pitch, sovereignty versus equity, like equity versus equality. And so, yeah, it's about putting in the work and also taking your time. I think for me, like I started at Manitoba Music, I think in 2005 or 2006, and I knew that it was going to be a long haul. And for that first week, first year at Manitoba Music, I was convinced that all my coworkers hated me because no one would talk to me, no one would invite me to things, and I had such a different culture. Like they all knew all these folk legends, like folk music legends and country music legends and rock music legends, and just that wasn't a part of my culture. I grew up in hip hop. I liked hip hop and I liked rap and different influences, and so it was just the cultural isolation was tough. And I think even with this arts leaders program, there's going to be some people who get the grants and find themselves culturally isolated at times. And like I said, you just got to be patient and work through it. And to this day, I count some of those people who I thought hated me, I count them as dear friends. So.
Okay, Kathleen, this is one for you. Do the self-directed applications require mentorships?
I'll turn on my mic. They don't require mentorships. That's just one type of thing that you can do. But there's, as I said earlier, a number, it just depends, quite frankly, on what it is that you want to do. What do you want to learn? And then what is the best way for you to go about learning that? I could give examples, like if it's somebody who's wanting to be, say, an artistic director in a theater, maybe they want to approach theaters in our community and ask if they can job shadow or act as an assistant to somebody who's in that directorial place. So that would be an example. That's not exactly a mentorship, but certainly mentorships also look different. There's so many different kinds of things. It can be something that's fairly full-time, or it could be something smaller and more part-time. So it really depends on what you want to do and what you think is the best way to go about it.
Thanks. There's another question. With the folks you reach out to in the applicant application, can it include an art collective as well? Yes, definitely. You could work with someone in an art collective. However, an art collective cannot be the applicant. It has to be the individual in the 3 applicant types that we had mentioned: professional artists, arts and cultural professional, and an Indigenous knowledge keeper. Okay, so here's another common question. Do the organizations you invite, this is just moving around on me. Do the organizations you invite to work with need to be nonprofit, incorporated, or both? Either or. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It could be a community organization that you can work with.
And they could be for-profit too.
Exactly.
Some
Yes.
publishing companies, for example, are for profit, and there's a number of music organizations too that would be for profit. And so,
Alan, here's another question for you. What was the name of the organization you mentioned regarding OVO? I was wondering if you can explain one more time the name of Drake's organization in Toronto.
Yeah, it's called the Remix Project. And what's interesting, it's really an accelerator incubator for talent. And what I've seen is like some of the more talented music producers get picked up by OVO's publishing arm. Some of them have gone on to be managed by Drex Jankar, who runs all the OVO stores around the world. And he manages Majid Jordan and a couple of other acts. And so it's really a talent incubator. And what's interesting, since the launch of the Remix Project and all the success they've had, I've also seen The Weeknd launch something called House through his XO label as well, which is the similar idea. It's an incubator for new talent. And like I said, not only talent on the music side, but talent on the business side as well.
Great. Okay. Kathleen, can you answer this question? I just want clarification on a question on the application about making connections and how that fits into the project. What does this entail?
I'm not sure I'm understanding which question that is exactly, but I know that one of the intentions of the program is for the individuals, through their opportunity, whatever the opportunity is that they are undertaking, is it allows them to make more connections within the community, which will ultimately help them through their career development. If that's the question or the area of the application that you're talking about, it's not a necessity for the program. You could say, I am a beginning arts leader. I run a company. I have a need to do some work on bookkeeping because that's an area that isn't a strength for me, for an example. And so I'm going to be doing a course on bookkeeping. So, am I going to do a lot of connecting with people through my bookkeeping course? That's possibly not going to happen, but in any ways that it can, through fellow students, the teachers, and through the opportunity to do better what you may already be attempting to do. Your career is long, and you may be moving through a variety of different positions in your lives. And so having this bookkeeping might be the kind of stepping stone to having a lot of other connections to other possible career opportunities. So you have to kind of craft, how you would address that particular question, but I hope that's helpful.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question for our guest speaker. I'm sorry if we didn't get to all of the questions in the brief time that we had available, but I would recommend that if you wanted to talk outside of this session, please feel free to call our help desk at 204-945-2237 and connect with us, and be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the program. Okay, so Alan, how has your experience being I'm not sure how this person wrote it, but how has your experience been tying your community with the professional world together, as our racialized identities are so personal?
I don't really know. I'm still learning a lot too. And like I mentioned, the Michelle Latimer controversy is really teaching me a lot. I think, like, for myself, I need to be accountable. I need to give back. I think reciprocity is very important. I'm not too sure if I'm answering the question. So I think, it is very personal, but at the same time, I think there's those commonalities of reciprocity being very important and being accountable being very important. And for me, accountability means, like, if my community says that I'm doing things wrong or incorrectly, or I should make changes, then I need to listen to that. Or if they say that, if I was Michelle Latimer and the community said, you know what, we don't accept you, we don't recognize you, then I would need to accept that and make efforts to make things right. And I also believe, like, I'm not a fan of cancel culture or social media call outs, but if I get those, then I've got to take a look at myself and really figure out what I'm doing wrong, and again try to make amends.
Yeah. What a nice way to conclude our session. Just want to thank everyone who is able to join us, and want to give a huge shout out to our MAC staff who have worked hard behind the scenes to make this all happen, and Shimigwich to Alan for being so awesome.
Oh, which
So please feel free to attend our other 2 sessions in our Arts Leader Speaker Series. Our next one is next Tuesday, January 26th, and it will be Alexia McKinnon from the Bounce Center. I think Alan mentioned how awesome the Bounce Center is.
Yeah.
And the following week on February 3rd, we'll be featuring Allison Yearwood from Plug-in Institute of Contemporary Art. So details can be found for both of these sessions on our MAC website. We've also recorded this session, and it will be available on our MAC Facebook and YouTube pages. So please feel free to review and share. And yeah, thank you once again. Good night. Bonsoir.